Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Bold and Beautiful. Today,
Sheila gets seduced by Luna's Steffi disposal plan. Last week on Bold and the Beautiful, Sheila Carter hurried to the beach mansion. She started by going to Steffi Forrester's house. However, she became aware of her granddaughter's activities after seeing the origami figures created by Luna Nozawa. Sheila deduced that Luna was after Steffi after connecting the dots. Then, at last, the clumsy grandmother persuaded Taylor Hayes to divulge Steffi's location. Then she hurried to find her at the beach house. Sheila's goal is to shield Luna from herself and to shield Steffi from Luna. Sheila was then moved by her granddaughter's vision of a world without Steffi, since it would allow her to have access to Finn. Nevertheless, she pleaded with her agitated granddaughter to stop. Spending time with Finn as mother and son is Sheila's top priority on Bold and Beautiful. However, Steffi obstructs Sheila's path just as much as she obstructs Luna's because she won't allow it to occur. Sheila looked somewhat tempted by Luna's depiction of a life in which she and Sheila would have access to Finn and Hayes Forrester Finnegan. Is it sufficient, though, to convince her to work with Luna? B&B, does Sheila continue to protect Steffi Forrester? The show Bold and the Beautiful provided viewers with a fresh and enhanced Sheila Carter during the previous few months. Since Finn is so content with Steffi Forrester and their small family, she has decided not to meddle in his affairs. Because of her love for her kid, Sheila complied with Steffi's request to keep away. Sheila attempted to get Luna to agree, but her ego prevents her from letting Finn be alone. She also holds Steffi Forrester responsible for her distance from her new father. However, Luna is now attempting to convince Sheila to see her while holding a gun aimed at Steffi. Steffi must leave. For the Forrester kid, who flinched when she saw Luna's gun on Bold and Beautiful last week, this must be even more terrifying. Sheila shot her not too long ago because she wanted her dead, just like Luna does now. However, the new Sheila may appear seduced by Luna's scheme as a ruse to remove the pistol from Luna. Will Sheila do everything in her power to keep Steffi safe, or will she join Luna in her mission to purge the world of her? Will Sheila choose Luna or Steffi in the Bold and the Beautiful? While Luna depicted that life without Steffi, Bold and the Beautiful showed Sheila Carter with some hesitancy. Sheila wants Finn and Hayes in her life, no doubt, but she doesn't want to ruin her son's life by killing Steffi. Therefore, Sheila's best course of action is probably to protect Steffi. However, by doing this, she would likely infuriate Luna, who will believe her grandmother is against her. Nevertheless, Sheila may have only one chance to save her daughter-in-law if she pretends to accompany Luna. Therefore, the old Sheila Carter might reappear before Luna's gun-wielding rule ends, but just long enough to regain control of the situation. Steffi may become even more terrified by this, but she might reconsider her mother-in-law if Sheila ends up protecting her. Which name is on the bullet at B&B? Many fans are wondering who will receive the bullet originally intended for Steffi, since Bold and the Beautiful spoilers suggest that Luna's reign will end this week. Some others are even concerned that Steffi Forrester may be shot. After Jacqueline McInnes would gives birth to her fifth child, viewers speculate that she will be taking maternity leave and becoming a stay-at-home mother. However, Steffi's popularity makes it appear difficult for this soap opera to kill her off. But it looks like fans also picture Sheila Carter either covering Steffi and taking the bullet meant for her daughter-in-law, or this grandma killing Luna Nozawa, who is due to leave Bold and Beautiful soon. Steffi Forrester's secluded beach house last week on the Bold and the Beautiful, transforming it from a sanctuary into a crucible of generational trauma and terrifying ambition. At the center of this vortex stood Luna Nozawa, eyes blazing with a frighteningly focused desperation, a gun unnervingly steady in her hand, its barrel aimed squarely at the terrified Steffi. Opposite her, a figure embodying decades of calculated menace yet radiating a surprising, volatile uncertainty, Sheila Carter. The catalyst for this explosive confrontation wasn't just Luna's sudden, violent turn, but the chillingly specific proposition she laid before her newly discovered grandmother, a meticulously painted vision of a future without Steffi Forrester, a disposal plan that dangled Sheila's deepest, most forbidden desire before her like a poisoned apple. Sheila's frantic dash to the beach house, fueled by the horrifying realization sparked by Luna's innocent origami figures, symbols of patience twisted into harbingers of obsession, wasn't merely protective, it was a race against the monstrous potential she recognized flickering in her granddaughter's eyes, the same potential that once burned within herself. Luna, convinced Steffi was the sole, immovable obstacle blocking her path to Finn and Hayes Forrester Finnegan, and equally convinced Steffi was the reason for her fractured relationship with her father, and Sheila's son, Dr. John Finn Finnegan, saw in Sheila not just a grandmother, but a potential ally forged in shared resentment. Her pitch was brutally simple, devastatingly alluring: eliminate Steffi, and the gates to Finn and Hayes would swing open for both of them. Luna painted a domestic tableau where she could finally claim Finn as her partner, and Sheila could step into the role of doting grandmother and mother-in-law, free from Steffi's ironclad decree of exile. This vision, whispered amidst the suffocating tension of the beach house, wasn't just a fantasy, it was a meticulously crafted lure, designed to tap directly into the molten core of Sheila Carter's being, her all-consuming, often pathological, need for connection with her son, Finn. For Sheila, who has spent agonizing months embodying a new and improved version of herself, suppressing her impulses out of a genuine, albeit warped, love for Finn's happiness, Luna's proposition struck a dissonant, terrifying chord. The allure was undeniable. Nothing Sheila Carter has ever craved more intensely than the legitimized acceptance into Finn's life, to hold Hayes, to be acknowledged as family. Steffi, standing resolutely as the guardian of that gate, denying Sheila access with unwavering determination, was indeed the common enemy Luna perceived. Luna's words offered a brutal shortcut to everything Sheila had been denied, a path cleared by violence that Sheila herself had once been willing to tread. The resonance was palpable, a flicker in Sheila's eyes betraying the seductive power of Luna's grim utopia. Yet, even as that dark fantasy momentarily shimmered before her, Sheila's immediate reaction was visceral rejection, a desperate plea for Luna to stop, to lower the gun, to abandon this catastrophic course. This contradiction is the heart of Sheila's agonizing dilemma. Her recent reformation, born from the painful realization that her interference only pushed Finn further away and that his happiness with Steffi and Hayes was genuine, had instilled a fragile discipline. Protecting Steffi, paradoxically, became synonymous with protecting her own fragile connection to Finn's world, a connection maintained only through silent, distant observation. To embrace Luna's plan was to obliterate the very foundation of Finn's happiness, ensuring his eternal hatred and grief, a consequence Sheila, in her current state, seemed unwilling to court. Luna's selfish obsession, her refusal to accept Finn's rejection or acknowledge Steffi's fundamental place in his life, mirrored Sheila's own past transgressions, but Sheila now seemed horrified by the reflection. Protecting Steffi became paramount, not out of affection for the woman who shot her and banished her, but as the sole strategy to prevent Luna from destroying everything: Luna's future, Finn's world, and Sheila's own tenuous grasp on restraint. However, the sheer, volatile danger Luna presented, amplified by the lethal weapon in her hand, forced Sheila onto a razor's edge. Could outright defiance push Luna over the edge, resulting in Steffi's murder before Sheila's eyes? This terrifying possibility opened the door to a devastatingly pragmatic strategy: feigning acquiescence. Pretending to be swayed by Luna's vision, appearing to join her granddaughter's murderous plot, might be the only way for Sheila to get close enough, to create an opening to disarm Luna or wrest control of the gun. This would necessitate a chilling resurrection of old Sheila, the master manipulator, the woman capable of profound deception, the predator lurking beneath the surface of the reformed grandmother. The prospect of seeing that Sheila re-emerge, even momentarily as a ploy, is doubly terrifying for Steffi, who recoiled not just from Luna's gun but from the traumatic echo of Sheila's own previous attempt on her life. The sight of Sheila seemingly aligning with her would-be assassin would be a psychological torture beyond measure. Yet, the potential outcome holds seismic implications. If Sheila successfully thwarts Luna and saves Steffi's life, it could shatter Steffi's rigid perception. Could such a profound, selfless, or strategically selfish act truly rewrite their history? Could Steffi ever reconcile the monster who shot her with the woman who took a bullet, literal or figurative, for her? This is the precarious high-wire act Sheila now walks. Every word, every glance, every subtle shift in posture towards Luna is a calculated risk. Is she genuinely trying to talk her granddaughter down from the ledge of irrevocable violence, appealing to a shred of reason buried beneath the obsession? Or is she meticulously playing a role, weaving a web of false agreement, lulling Luna into a false sense of alliance, waiting for the split-second vulnerability that allows her to strike? The gun remains the grim focal point, its presence a constant reminder of the life hanging in the balance. Spoilers whispering of Luna's imminent departure and the bullet finding someone amplify the dread. Will Steffy, despite the actress's maternity leave, suffer a non-fatal wound? Will Sheila, in a moment of sacrificial desperation born from love for Finn or a final grasp at redemption, throw herself in front of the bullet meant for Steffy? Or, in the chaos of disarming Luna, will the weapon discharge towards the aggressor herself, forcing Sheila into the unfathomable position of killing her own granddaughter to save her daughter-in-law? Each potential outcome is a narrative landmine. Luna's Steffy disposal plan is more than just a deranged scheme, it's a crucible testing the very core of Sheila Carter's claimed transformation. It forces her to choose, in the most extreme circumstances imaginable, between the seductive darkness of her past, represented by Luna's mirrored rage and the promise of forced access to Finn, and the fragile, complex path she's tried to forge, a path that, however paradoxically, requires protecting the woman who represents her greatest rejection. The beach house standoff is not just about Steffy's survival, it's about whether Sheila's love for Finn can truly conquer the monstrous impulses that once defined her, or if Luna's lethal lure will prove irresistible, dragging them all into an abyss from which there is no return. Every second ticks by with the weight of potential catastrophe, making Sheila's dance with Luna's proposal the most perilous, psychologically charged gamble of her torrid existence. The bullet waits, and the choice Sheila makes, genuine protection or feigned alliance, will echo through the lives of Finn, Hayes, Steffy, and forever define the legacy of the Carter bloodline. One of the three people shot doesn't survive. Luna Nawaza will intensify her feud with Steffy Forrester. Sheila Carter, Luna's cuckoo grandmother, tells her that she wouldn't let Steffy decide whether or not John Finnegan is in their life. Sheila encouraged Luna to put down the rifle and go, even though she understood her granddaughter's emotions. Sheila is aware that Finn would never want to talk to her again if Luna were to harm Steffy. Luna would not put down the gun. Luna grew more determined the more Sheila pleaded. Luna appeared out of nowhere and raised the gun to aim, but the episode ended before we could see who she was aiming for. Luna pulls the trigger. According to soap opera news, Luna will shoot, but it will hit an unlikely target. Social media users are saying that Luna shoots Sheila first. She told her grandmother that she was getting sick of her telling her to stop bothering Steffy. Luna doesn't understand why Sheila isn't more supportive of her wanting a relationship with her father. After all, Steffy forbids Finn from speaking to Sheila as well. Sheila instructed Luna to give her the gun at Friday's show and warned her not to use it on Steffy. Although she is aware that Luna is angry and desires a connection with Finn, she cautions that this is not the appropriate approach to resolve the matter. They can work things out. It begins when Luna hands her the rifle and lowers it. Is Sheila shot during a battle? Luna declines. Rather, she pulled the trigger. It appears inevitable that the gun will strike Steffy. It will frighten her and her family, but she probably won't die. According to teasers on The Bold and the Beautiful, Sheila tries to take the gun away from her granddaughter after Steffy is shot. She wishes for Luna to cause no harm to anyone. A fight might break out, and Luna and Sheila might both get struck. Luna will probably be the one to die from the bullet wound in any case. After everything she has done in the last year, her character cannot be saved. 3 shots and 1 death. Another scenario is that Finn quickly intervenes to save his wife from his insane daughter after realizing she is in danger. He might find himself in the line of fire. Alternatively, Liam Spencer might sense problems with Steffy and jump to her defense. Luna appears to be the one who will not survive any of these potential situations. It might be advantageous for Sheila to have some involvement in Finn's life if she is shot while attempting to defend Steffy. Luna Nozawa's knuckles whitened around the cold, unforgiving steel of the pistol, her grandmother Sheila Carter's pleas, desperate, maternal, yet laced with the chilling pragmatism only a survivor of her own violent chaos could muster, washing over her like ineffective rain against a wildfire of wounded entitlement. Put it down, Luna, please, Sheila implored, her voice a ragged whisper scraping against the tension. her eyes wide with the horrifying premonition not just of Steffy Forrester's potential demise mere feet away, frozen in defiant terror, but of the irrevocable severing of any fragile thread connecting her to her son Finn, whose life, controlled by Steffy's iron will, Luna now sought to violently reclaim. Finn will never forgive you, he'll hate you, this isn't the way. Yet, each syllable of caution, each reminder of consequence, only fanned the flames of Luna's twisted determination, her gaze locked not on Sheila's anguished face but on Steffy, the immovable obstacle, the gatekeeper who dared deny her access to the father she felt cheated of, the frustration boiling over as she snapped at Sheila, "I'm tired of you telling me to leave her alone. I want my father. Why aren't you fighting for me? For us? She keeps him from you too." A damning accusation that echoed Sheila's own bitter history but fell on deaf ears consumed by imminent catastrophe. The moment stretched, a suffocating eternity compressed into seconds, where reason dissolved entirely, replaced by the blinding, corrosive heat of perceived injustice. Luna's arm, trembling yet resolute, jerked upwards in a sudden, violent arc, the barrel swinging wildly, its ultimate target obscured by the sheer, chaotic force of her emotion and the show's cruel cut to black, leaving only the horrifying promise of impact hanging in the void. That promise shattered instantly with the return, the screen exploding not with image first, but with sound, the deafening, world-splitting crack of the gunshot, a sound that ripped through the room's fragile silence like shrapnel. Pandemonium erupted not in slow motion, but in a brutal, disjointed rush. Steffy Forrester cried out, a sharp gasp ripped from her throat as she stumbled backwards, clutching her shoulder, crimson instantly blooming across the pristine fabric of her blouse, her face a mask of shock and pain, the intended target struck, but not felled. Yet, the bullet, unleashed with reckless fury, possessed its own terrible trajectory. Sheila Carter, propelled by a grandmother's primal instinct and the dawning realization that Luna's rampage wouldn't stop with Steffy, lunged forward with a guttural scream, and no more. "Luna! Give it to me!" Her hands, claw-like and desperate, grappled for the weapon, trying to wrench it from her granddaughter's unyielding grip, a horrifying dance of salvation and doom playing out over Steffy's crumpled form. In the brutal, close-quarters struggle, a tangle of limbs, desperation, and the slick, metallic smell of blood, the gun, a malevolent entity with its own will, erupted again. Bang! Sheila's body jerked violently, a choked cry escaping her lips as she collapsed, clutching her abdomen, her eyes wide with disbelief and agony, not just from the physical wound, but from the devastating source. Bang! Almost simultaneously, a third shot tore through the air. Luna Nozawa gasped, a sound of profound surprise rather than pain, her eyes widening as she looked down at the sudden, dark stain spreading rapidly across her own chest, the gun slipping from her suddenly nerveless fingers, clattering to the floor with a final, hollow thud that echoed the extinguishing of her own furious light. She sank to her knees, then crumpled sideways, her gaze fixed on nothing, the fire of her rage replaced by a chilling emptiness. 3 bodies lay in the wreckage, Steffy, wounded and gasping, radiating fury and fear, Sheila, grievously injured, her face etched with the unbearable pain of being shot by her own flesh and blood, her desperate attempt to prevent tragedy now part of the tragedy itself, and Luna, already slipping away, her quest for a father's love ending in a pool of her own making, the character deemed irredeemable paying the ultimate price, her final breath escaping in a ragged sigh as the life drained from her eyes, leaving behind only the deafening silence broken by Steffy's pained whimpers and Sheila's weakening sobs, the acrid scent of gunpowder and blood hanging heavy over the scene where 3 shots rang out, and only one life wouldn't make it, Luna's violent ambition finally, fatally, stilled. Sheila Carter herself didn't so much part as it shattered when Steffy Forrester spoke. Not with the venom Sheila expected, not with the righteous fury Steffy had every biological and moral imperative to unleash, not even with the cold dismissal that would have been a mercy compared to the past tortures Sheila had inflicted upon this young woman and her entire lineage. Instead, Steffy's words, measured yet imbued with an almost unbearable gravity, landed with the quiet force of a tectonic shift deep within Sheila's fractured psyche, an acknowledgement of the twisted, undeniable biological bond, a concession to the shared, poisoned bloodline, and then, the impossible, the incomprehensible, the seismic, forgiveness. Not absolution for the litany of horrors, the shootings, the manipulations, the shattered lives left in her narcissistic wake, but a release. A deliberate, conscious choice to sever the chains of vengeance that had bound them both in a deadly, exhausting dance. I forgive you, Steffi said, her voice steady, cutting through the static of Sheila's perpetual paranoia and self-justification. I forgive you, and I release you. It wasn't a declaration of love, nor a whitewashing of history. It was a profound act of self-preservation and unexpected, staggering mercy, offered not because Sheila deserved it, but perhaps because Steffi possessed a strength Sheila could only counterfeit, the strength to choose peace over perpetual war, to break the cycle. For a heartbeat, a fraction of a second that stretched into an eternity, Sheila stood frozen, the carefully constructed persona of the indomitable predator, the survivor who thrived on hatred and chaos, momentarily suspended. Her eyes, usually narrowed slits of calculation or blazing with feral rage, widened in pure, unadulterated shock, the pupils dilating as if absorbing an entirely new spectrum of light. The lines etched by decades of bitterness and self-inflicted isolation seemed to soften, not with age, but with the sheer, overwhelming weight of an emotion she had spent a lifetime suppressing, fearing, and ultimately believing herself incapable of experiencing, genuine, unadulterated relief. It wasn't the relief of escaping consequence, it was the relief of a drowning woman finally, impossibly, feeling solid ground beneath her feet after a lifetime adrift in a self-made ocean of venom. The dam, built brick by bloody brick from betrayal, abandonment, and her own monstrous choices, holding back a reservoir of primal, desperate need she dared never acknowledge, began to crack. A single, traitorous tear, hot and shocking against her cheek, breached the fortress of her cynicism. Then another. And then, as the full, staggering reality of Steffi's words, "I release you," reverberated through the hollow chambers of her soul, the dam exploded. A raw, guttural sob tore from Sheila's throat, a sound so foreign it seemed to startle even her, a sound dredged up from depths untouched by sunlight for 50 years. Her shoulders, perpetually squared for the next fight, collapsed inward, her body folding under the weight of an unexpected, crushing absolution she had never sought yet somehow desperately craved. The hardened mask of Sheila Carter, the villain, the monster, the survivor, dissolved like ash in the rain, revealing the terrified, wounded child beneath, the child who had only ever wanted to be seen, to be valued, to be loved, and who had twisted that desperate need into something grotesque when the world seemed to offer only rejection. Through the torrential downpour of tears that blurred the imposing figure of Steffi, the woman she had tried to kill, the woman whose family she had relentlessly tormented, Sheila gasped, the words ripped from her core, raw and unfiltered, stripped of all pretense and manipulation, "MOM." The cry was primal, a desperate plea echoing through the decades back to Deacon, back to every failed connection, every rejection, every moment where maternal love felt like a cruel myth. Thank you. It wasn't logical, Steffi wasn't her mother. But in that cataclysmic moment, Steffi had done something no one else ever had. She had offered a form of unconditional acceptance, a cessation of hostility that felt, to Sheila's utterly broken understanding of love, maternal in its magnitude. For saving me. The final words were a wail of pure, unadulterated revelation. Saving her. Not from prison or death, but from herself. From the inescapable, self-perpetuating hell of her own making. From the exhausting, isolating burden of being Sheila Carter. Steffi's forgiveness, her release, felt like an amputation of the gangrenous limb of her past hatreds. It offered a terrifying, exhilarating glimpse of a different existence, a path untrodden, a future not defined by the next revenge plot or desperate grasp for control. The gratitude wasn't calculated, it was the desperate gasp of a soul finally offered oxygen after suffocating in its own toxic atmosphere for a lifetime. Sheila cried not just with happiness, but with the shattering release of a burden she hadn't realized was crushing her, the burden of being perpetually at war, the burden of universal hatred, the burden of being the monster. Steffi, her victim, her nemesis, the embodiment of everything she had tried to destroy, had, with 3 impossible words, thrown her a lifeline she never dreamed existed. The tears were the baptism of a soul confronting the terrifying, beautiful possibility of redemption, not through grand gestures, but through the unmerited grace of a victim choosing peace. In that raw, unguarded moment of broken sobs and the choked repetition of "Mom, thank you, Sheila Carter," for perhaps the first time in her entire, chaotic existence, was not the predator, not the schemer, not the villain. She was simply a profoundly broken human being, drowning in the overwhelming, unexpected, and life-altering tide of undeserved mercy, crying out in the only language her shattered heart could comprehend for the motherly salvation she had always craved and finally found, impossibly, in the forgiveness of her enemy. It was the sound of a fortress collapsing from within, not under siege, but under the unbearable, miraculous weight of kindness.